Woke up this morning and my wife checks her phone and she just goes, "Oh no, JuJu got hurt last night." And I was like, "Oh man, I knew she had a bad ankle. Like, you sure that's old?" She's like, "No, this is a new post." And then I was like, "Dang, that sucks. Hopefully she's all right." And then 2 minutes later, roll over, open my phone, and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't realize it was ACL." And she goes, "What?" Because we had seen two different posts. And that was how I started my day. Just an absolutely terrible, terrible thing to happen in such a high-profile moment, in such a high-profile game. JuJu Watkins, the presumptive National Player of the Year in women's college basketball, according to ESPN's Shams Charania, tears her ACL. She takes contact on a fast break last night, early on in the game for University of Southern California. Her teammates rallied and absolutely blew out their opponent. And this sucks for a million reasons, Anthony. First is just the pure basketball of it all, right? We were 2 games away, 1 win by each team away from JuJu Watkins versus Paige Bueckers for a shot at the Final Four. And it's hard to overstate how big of a moment, how big of a game that would be. And the only, in a weird way, it's like, oh, it's so unprecedented. The only precedent we have is last season and the season before. But like having the 2 biggest stars in the sport face off in the way that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese did the last couple of years is what we were going to go for, except for unlike the Caitlin Angel matchups, these two probably would have been guarding each other. Like it would have truly been head to head. Not only, Anthony, I think the 2 biggest stars in the sport, there are multiple things you could measure to say that Paige Bueckers and JuJu Watkins are the 2 biggest stars in college sports. If you look at social media followings, you look at NIL earnings, if you look at pure notoriety, I know Cakes did this very silly thing this morning on the Junkies, which I thought was laughable because of how wrong it was. Where he said if you took like one of the fat heads of like JuJu Watkins out on the National Mall, how many people would know JuJu Watkins? He's like, not many. I was like, no. A lot of them. Like more so than any other athlete in college sports. Anthony, if I showed you 2 photos and said, I need you to identify one of these people, would you have a better chance of identifying Cam Ward, who's about to go number 1 in the NFL draft, or JuJu Watkins?
JuJu Watkins, no questions.
Cooper Flagg or JuJu Watkins?
JuJu Watkins, no question.
Okay, is there anybody else that's a bigger name? Travis Hunter or JuJu Watkins?
That one's tough.
That one's tougher. Travis is the Heisman Trophy winner. He's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I would probably still lean JuJu.
Yeah, I would also lean JuJu. JuJu Watkins, featured in the Nike basketball commercial that aired in the Super Bowl. JuJu Watkins, star of her own State Farm commercial. Not your mom and pop insurance company. State Farm, the biggest, or one of the biggest, all due respect to Allstate and Geico and anyone else who could potentially sponsor this show. Companies. Like, she is box office, bro. And she is a star among stars in LA. That is how big JuJu Watkins is. And to know that we are missing out on the tournament having that kind of star power, that as long as those 2 players were playing, we were guaranteed to have one of them in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
And 2, on just the pure basketball side of it, I know probably a lot of people, actually, I think more people probably know JuJu Watkins than have actually watched her play, in part because she plays on the West Coast, like locally, maybe not nationally, but locally. People will be like, oh, yeah, she's the USC basketball player. She got the bun, right?
Yep.
Like, she's in the Nike commercials, right? She's State Farm? Yeah, her. But, like, actually having watched her play, she plays a bunch of her games at 10 o'clock at night. So, unless you're a sicko and you have a late night schedule, yeah, Anthony. Me, I haven't watched as much of JuJu as I have, say, Paige, because Paige plays in the Eastern time zone, and I go to sleep at 10 o'clock every night. As I was texting with my college basketball friends earlier today, I was like, 10 o'clock is bedtime, not tip time. This was a chance for JuJu. I mean, even last night, this happens overnight for most folks.
Yeah.
Right? This is a 10 o'clock game. She gets hurt a couple minutes into it. The news breaks at like 3 in the morning or whatever it is, East Coast time. This is an overnight story that we all wake up to devastated today. And we were one game away from her playing in more reasonable windows and bigger audiences, and a lot more people seeing, oh my God, watching JuJu Watkins play basketball is incredible. And it also sucks because, like, record pursuits, things like that, this might be the difference. Depending on how much time she misses next year, this might be the difference in Caitlin Clark staying the all-time leading scorer or not in NCAA basketball history, because JuJu was very much on pace to break it. And then, as I mentioned, like, watching Paige Beckers go absolutely bonkers last night, 34 points, 4 assists, 4 steals in 29 minutes. And that doesn't even really begin to describe how dominant she was in that game. Knowing that we were that close to seeing those two, possibly the next 2 number 1 overall picks in the WNBA draft, if not 2 of the next 3, depending on how long JuJu stays. That just sucks, man. It sucks for all of us. Nevertheless, how much it sucks for her on a human level to have to deal with that injury, which obviously surpasses all of that.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off like what you're saying, like, the worst part of sports is injuries. Like, you really can't control it. And it's like super unfortunate that it does happen to one of the best in college basketball. But yes, everybody was definitely anticipating that matchup between her and Paige, and her just accomplishing so much more the next couple of years. So I think we sort of kind of do take a step back, in terms of what she's been able to bring to the game and things of that nature. But I think this also is a chance for to continue to grow women's sports again. Like, even building off what Caitlin Clark did last year. This year, the TV ratings and things are up, and it's only going to continue to go up. So it does suck, and it is super unfortunate. But I think this is just a minor setback, and she's going to bounce back from this.
For sure. And she'll inspire a whole bunch of people. Like, there will be little girls and little boys who see JuJu come back from this. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, January, February next year feels like about the right time, about 10 months from now, when she'll probably be getting back on the floor. Who are like, I watched you go through this, and I know that I could get through my injury, and specifically maybe an ACL injury. And unfortunately, specifically on the women's side of it, there is an ACL epidemic. It's worse in soccer than it is in basketball, but there is a ton of ACL issues. And this was just a super unfortunate, like, there's some contact, but her knee just crumples, and it hit just right / just wrong. And this happened. But I will rebound off what you just said, Anthony, in a way that I think actually is a good thing for women's sports. And I kind of make it my mission as someone who does talk a lot about women's sports to try not to be existential about it, right? I'm not sitting here trying to preach and convince anybody. I'm just talking about sports that I love watching.
Yeah.
Like, women's sports are not a charity. I'm not trying to do charity work. I'm talking about one of the best basketball players on earth. I'm talking about some of the best basketball on earth, which is why we watch it. And with that said, there was, for so many years, really until like the last 2 or 3, there was always this underlying fear of, like, if something happens, a big star goes down, there's a big scandal, whatever, that it threatens basically the entire existence of the sport. I don't worry about that anymore, which is great. And especially, like, women's college now is so much more equal to the men's side. And, depending on the year, there's going to be bigger ratings for women's games than men's games. And the championship game last year, the women's game surpasses the men's game for the first time ever. Thanks in large part to Caitlin, but as you said, it's been a record viewership year this season, post-Caitlin, for ESPN on the women's side. But I genuinely, like, there's still issues that are specific to women's sports and some of the power struggles, and when there's abuse scandals and things like that tend to happen on the women's side way more than the men's, and those are huge problems. But I worry much less that, oh my God, Paige versus JuJu is not going to happen. What does this mean for the health of the sport? It's not nothing, but it's very little. At least we are at a point where I'm just bummed out that I don't get to watch the game. And, like, I'm obviously way more sad for JuJu and her family, and, knowing how tough ACL rehab is to go through, knowing that she's going to have to go through this very painful, literally and figuratively, process. But I am at least given some relief, I guess, that, one, we know how to do ACL recovery and rehab now. I feel great about her ability to come back and be every bit of the player she was ever going to be. And that's a phenomenal thing that for her, this injury happens at this point in human history where we know what we know about ACL rehab, and that's great. And that this isn't something where this injury is robbing us anything more than an opportunity. The existential survival of the sport isn't going to die because we don't get Paige versus JuJu, and I look forward to them squaring off in the future in the WNBA. So at least we got that going for us.
Nah, for sure.
Which is nice.
And I'm not going to lie, Craig, it's funny because when you were talking about, people paying attention more to maybe the women's game than the men's game, my dad was I was on the phone with my dad when it actually happened. And he was like, really, man? I've been paying way more attention to the women's game than the dudes game. I was like, I think that's just, the trajectory of like sports kind of thing. Like it's entertaining and it's good that, women are finally getting this opportunity.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.